Hello. While everybody jumps into the webinar, if you want to put in the chat where you're from, what chapter you're from, we always like to see who we've got. We'll give it a minute or so for people to hop on in and then we'll start. Hey, Albuquerque. I lived in Albuquerque for 6 years. All right, we'll start at 10:02.
All right. Thanks for populating the chat with who you are and where you're from. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are excited that you're here with us, and I am so excited to introduce you to the amazing women of Clayco. They have generously provided their time, their wisdom, their efforts, and their thoughts on being a Black woman in construction, working for Clayco, everywhere from project management to director of IT to the senior VP. So we've got quite the amazing panel for you today, and I'm super excited to get us going. So Mercedes?
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. As we are still having some people file in, my name's Mercedes Gamore. I am the DEI chair for this year. I'm really excited to have you as one of our webinars for celebrating Black History Month. I am not going to do a lot of talking. I just want to say thank you all for coming and supporting this webinar and being able to listen to the stories and insight from these amazing women. I do also want to invite you to our WIC Week webinar. If you haven't seen that posted on LinkedIn, we have a WIC Week webinar next week on March 7th at 2:30 p.m. CST. So that's 12:30 PST, and I believe that makes that 3:30 EST. It is with Dr. Thela Thatch, and then Justice and Equity Under Fire, How to Lead Boldly in 2025. So if you have been trying to figure out how to move forward in the current landscape, or how can you show up for yourself, your communities, for your chapter, for your region, for your companies, then this is a great kind of precursor intro. This will have a follow-up webinar in April at some point, that's kind of more focused on you as a business or a company and how do you respond to all of the executive orders and things that are happening in the world right now. So if you're interested in that, please, I will put the link in the chat to register for that, but we hope to see you there. And with that, I'm going to hand it off back to Lisa and these amazing women.
Thank you, Mercedes. Well, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce you to the most amazing Sandra Marks. I reached out to Sandra to see if she would be interested in this panel, as she was a featured spotlight from last year's Black History Month, as her career has brought her to incredible heights from which she continues to climb. So Sandra, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
I thank you. And I certainly want to start by saying how excited it is for Clayco and some of the women of Clayco to join NAWIC in this Black History celebration. It's really appropriate that this will be the last week of Black History Month, which then flows into Women in Construction Week, NAWIC's Women in Construction. And we have a group just like we have of our Black resource group within Clayco called Clayco Now, Network of Women. So all of us represent both of those entities inside of Clayco, but this gives us an opportunity to really share some very unique perspectives that we have as Black women. I'm really excited to be joined by the women who have been able to come with us today. As you mentioned, I'm Senior VP at Clayco. It's actually will be my 10th year next week, so excited that I've been there now for 10 years. Prior to that, I've been a consultant to Clayco, but I lead our business unit of government and community affairs, which really is totally different than what people maybe think that title represents. But my role and the people that work with me in that role are involved in making sure our industry makes impactful improvements in the design and construction industry locally and nationwide. So giving us a nationwide platform like you've done today is so exciting, because it gives us a chance again to share how we individually see our futures in this industry, where we've come from, And certainly where, with the help of all of us working together, we expect to go moving forward. As an executive, again, I chair that or head up that business unit, and that really puts me in every aspect of Clayco. So I'm involved with the recruiting, I'm involved with procurement, I'm involved with supporting all of our functions inside of Clayco to just be sure again that we put people first. And Clayco recognizes, and I'll stop with this, but diversity is everybody. So everyone is diverse in some way. But then there are those of us who are diverse, and we're seen as diverse based on the color of our skin or our gender. And that tends to allow us to be really given an opportunity, if you will, to represent a certain group of people very boldly. And I say it that way. We're boldly Black women that are inside of Clayco in various fields. And this is just a subset. And these are women that I kind of handpicked because, one, I know them all very well, and they are dynamos inside of Clayco in their own rights. They are truly making history in Clayco. So I'm excited to get going, share as much as I can, but also really hear from them. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for that wonderful introduction to yourself, your role, and Clayco as a company. April, I'd love to start off with you. Can you please introduce yourself, what you do with Clayco, how long you've been with Clayco, and what role you have?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. April Austin, originally born and raised from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a PM for Clayco. I'm a traveling PM. I'm currently working in the Atlanta metro region. Currently, right now, I've been at Clayco going on 8 years. So I've been here a little longer than most, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, April. Crystal, would you please introduce yourself, your role, and how long you've been with Clayco?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Crystal Crenshaw, and I am the manager of infrastructure services. And I have been with Clayco going on almost 6 years. And I am also the executive chair for our Black Resource Group.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that introduction, Crystal. Lillian, would you please introduce yourself, how long you've been with Clayco?
Thanks, Lisa. My name is Lillian Ondari. I'm a senior project manager here at Clayco. I've been at Clayco a little bit over 7 years, going on 8 now.
Thank you, Lillian. Aretha?
Hi, everyone. My name is Aretha. I'm a project manager with Clayco, and I've been with Clayco for about 5 years now.
Awesome. Thank you. Corey, would you please introduce yourself and your role with Clayco?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Corey Jameson. I have been with Clayco. I just hit 8 years last week. I am a senior superintendent.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for giving of your time, and I look forward to our discussion. We're going to have some fun. So, knowing that you've been with Clayco for a long time, I'd love to hear, this is not your first stop on the road into construction. What do you feel that has contributed most to your personal and professional growth over the years? Corey, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I can start us off. I've always had like a hands-on mentality, and construction gave me the opportunity to build something like tangible and lasting. My story is unique like everyone else's. I started as a laborer, and from the beginning of my journey, I always was committed to not just excelling within this industry, but with Clayco in particular. So it's been a nice journey for me.
That commitment to success and being able to see the product of your labor is incredible. Thank you so much, Corey.
Wonderful feeling, not a problem.
Aretha, what has contributed to your growth and success in the construction industry?
I think what's contributed to my growth is champions, having people who can speak on your behalf about your work ethic and what you bring to the team. And so, having your reputation precede you in a good way and, doing a good job and having those people say, hey, Aretha's doing well, and that traveling, that word of mouth, and then kind of having those people support you, and then just, spreading that word. That has been a great development in my growth at Clayco, because, word gets around, Aretha's a good PM, let's get her on our job.
You've heard that. That's wonderful. Thank you, Aretha. Ms. Marks, what has contributed to your growth in the construction industry over the years?
Well, I think I'm a little unique, obviously, in that I am not a construction person, right? My background is business. I have my MBA and started my own company over 30 years ago. But the construction industry and my growth there has really been because it's been such an opportunity to live out my life purpose, to be honest. I mean, it really is for me a chance to transform an industry that is desperately in need of talent and in need of people who are really good at what they do. And so my ability, I think, to meet people where they are, and I've always been the kind of person that really tries to get to know people at a very personal, intimate level, and then see how I can help them. I call myself a motivator and encourager. I don't often find myself in the front as much as pushing people from behind. And so I hope I have been for many of the women here and at Clayco, as well as others I've encountered, as kind of that sponsor or that supporter who is really able to be sure that their talent is seen. Because I think there's so many women, in particular Black women, who are very good at what they do, and they just really need somebody to see them and to acknowledge that they are able to manage. And in this industry, being able to manage the projects that these women have managed and are managing in the field, to be someone like Crystal in IT, who's managing a total evolution, not only of Clayco as it relates to IT, but of our industry and how our industry is embracing IT. These are things that require that somebody had to sponsor you and push you along the way. I had to have a sponsor. So I don't really know anybody that hasn't had to have somebody that is willing to let them be seen. But once they let me be seen, Lisa, I took it from there. Right?
That is awesome. I love how your response kind of echoed what Aretha said about having that person who will speak about you when you're not in the room. That is excellent. Thank you so much, Ms. Sandra. Ms. Lillian, what has contributed to your growth in the construction industry over the years?
Thank you again, Lisa. So I think for me, I'm just gonna go two-part if I heard you correctly, personally and career-wise. On a personal level, I think it's something that I sought out as a young individual. I did go to school for construction as well as engineering, so it's something that I knew that I wanted to do. And then once I started off in my career, it is really mentorship. It goes back to what Sandra and Aretha just said. It's mentorship, and there is no lack of mentors here at Clayco. I've been under a mentor wing here on the West Coast for the last probably 6 years. I've worked for the same individual. They really took me under their wing and kind of took me through the process and just helped me through growth, I would say. So mentorship, I would say, is a big one for me on the career side.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lillian. Ms. Crystal, what has contributed to your growth and success in the industry over the years?
So one of the, outside of what all the ladies have already spoken to, one of the big things is you definitely need to have, a champion and a mentor. Those things are extremely critical to, towards your success. And so I really depended and leaned into my mentors a lot. Sandra was one of the first people that I reached out to, and I said, I know you're busy, but I need a mentor. So I'm asking you to do those things. And so just being able to, learn a lot of the things that she's been able to show me, and a lot of the other great mentors that I've had across the years in my profession. And then one of the other things is just in my role, I have to diversify my thinking and how I think about things and how I approach things. And so because of that, those things have really, really helped me be successful.
I love how you're talking about diversifying your thinking, because in our panel discussion the other day, one of the words that we talked about was being able to pivot and being able to respond to situations that happen, planned or unplanned. What have you done, or who has helped you to be able to diversify your thinking? Because that's not an easy job to do on your own.
So, for me, honestly, it's just something I seek out, being the person that I am. I have a curious mind. I'm always wanting to know, uh, you know, why do leaves change colors in the fall? And just, no matter where I am, I'm just always thinking about things. And so I wouldn't say specifically like one person said that to me. I just think that's just always been a part of who I am. I remember when I was in the 6th grade and my teacher, Gary Osco, he actually introduced me to a computer. And where I come from, born and raised East St. Louis, a lot of people didn't know where the computer was, wasn't even thinking about it. And so for me, it wasn't just about you got this thing in front of you. In my mind, it was, how does that work? And so I've just always been that way.
That's great. It's so awesome that you have that memory too. So being at such a young age, getting that introduction, and now look at you. That's pretty great. April, what has contributed to your growth and success in the construction industry?
I think one of the big attributes or correlations for me is that I'm a former collegiate athlete, and a lot of what we do in the construction industry is very similar to being on a basketball team. So the team atmosphere, collaborating together, putting plans together to execute the plan, leadership skills, all of those things have kind of translated into my career on the construction side. I've always wanted to be involved in building something. I always wanted to be an engineer. And it's funny because when I was younger, my dad, for some reason, thought an engineer was people that work on trains. So I've always wanted to be an engineer. I have a civil engineering degree, and I also was a basketball player going through college. And so I think, sports and just being involved with sports and the team atmosphere helped me tremendously on a day-to-day basis working in the construction industry, because we work on large teams. Like this team I'm on now is roughly 60 Clayco employees. So just being able to work together and, divide and conquer, be able to delegate, and just work collaboratively to reach a common goal.
Awesome. That is so great. The next question that I'd like to ask you all, and Aretha, we'll start with yourself, is what contributes to your sense of belonging on a job site? When you walk in there, that you're belonging there, and it's there because of certain things. What's contributed to your sense of belonging?
That one's for me a little difficult. I'm a traveling PM, so I've been on several different job sites. I've been from South Carolina to Jacksonville to now I'm in Fort Myers. And Clayco has our headquarters in, St. Louis and Chicago. So it's hard to find ties. What I have done on a site and project basis is, make sure we have like team lunches. And so there's a direct connection with the team, my project superintendents and Ps and things of that nature. So every project I have been on, I try to encourage, just some group outings, outside of work, where we don't try and discuss work and get to know each other. But you kind of create your own niche in your own little community every project. I've worked with different people every project I've been on, so that's new too. So every time it feels like, you're the new kid on the block, but it's a great experience. It makes it feel new every time.
That's great. A lot of things come together when you're eating too. So.
Absolutely.
Feeding the soul. Corey, what has contributed to your sense of belonging on the job site as a superintendent? That's pretty important that you feel that.
My sense of belonging on a job site comes from the work that I put in and the relationships that I've built over the years. Like I say, I started as a laborer, so I understand the challenges from every level and every different perspective. And I feel like that give me like a unique connection to all the different crews, especially being a superintendent. Like I say, I'm hands-on, I problem solve alongside the team. I make sure everyone knows that I respect them. I just don't want them to respect me as the superintendent on the job site. Respect goes a two-way street in the construction industry. And I've earned mine by being consistent. Like I would consider Sandra Marks one of my mentors early on, and she's way out in St. Louis, you know what I'm saying? So I also genuinely love what I do. Like, I don't think I could have chose a different career path. Like, construction is tough, but it's rewarding. So take pride in my work.
That is awesome. What you were saying about problem solving and respecting other people while you're in there with them, and the force that you bring to the job site. Thank you for that, because that really speaks to how you just show up, and that's a big part of your belonging. That's really cool. Ms. Marks, what has contributed to your sense of belonging in this industry?
Well, I think very similar to what Corey said. I came into the industry again as an outsider because I'm not of the industry, but really trying to bring a new approach to how we develop people and how we develop businesses. And I recall one of my great mentors at Clayco, Russ Burns, who is our outgoing. He's just recently retired, but he left so many gems in me in terms of things he would say. And when I first came to Clayco, he said, as a consultant, I know that you're used to being bought into a company to fix something. And so you often come into a company with a sense of urgency that I need to fix it so I can check this off and go on, as opposed to kind of finding a way to just fit into the company, listen more, right? Consultants usually are kind of delivering back out, but just really sit there and listen and really become a part of the fabric of the company. And he actually was giving me credit for doing that at Clayco. He says, you could have come in here and just kind of start changing a bunch of things and moving stuff around without first really taking time to get to know Clayco, get to know the people, get to understand what we've done in the past, respect the things we've done right, but also challenge us on the things we've done wrong. So I think, again, that sense of belonging is very similar to what Aretha said. When you all of a sudden plop and find yourself in a whole new environment with a whole new group of people, for me, is to kind of start taking that in like a sponge, just absorbing it and saying, okay, how do I exist in this space and adapt to it versus just kind of hitting it one-sided.
That's really insightful, approaching belonging with a sense of absorbing the culture of what's around you and looking to the people to kind of, and the relationships to develop that sense of belonging, adding to what's there as opposed to going in to change something. Thank you. Lillian, what has contributed to your sense of belonging in this industry?
I think for me, I would speak as also a traveling PM for the last many years. Excuse me. I would say that we do here at Clayco truly have very talented individuals. So whenever I get put on a team, as a PM, you're equally tasked with actually managing those team relationships. So I tend to look at it as even coming in as a Black woman, I don't think that I've felt that I don't belong at Clayco. Whatever team I'm put on, I've never had the feeling that my Blackness is an issue with the teams that I get to work with. So that's been pretty much good. It's one of the very big items for me here at Clayco. And then additionally, just finding that common goal within the team. The team is really here to get the job done most of the time. So having to relate with everybody on that level that we're here to get these things accomplished, and everybody that pretty much most of the people I run into really just want to get that project done, get it done right. So finding that common goal and then using that with the additional relationship, like Aretha said, here at Clayco, we do have the additional, hey, get the team meetings together and just get people to connect outside of work as well. So that's worked very, very well for me for most of the teams that I've been. So I've always felt like this is home for me at this point.
That's awesome. That reflects what Corey was saying earlier about what you bring to the job site and the skill sets that you have, and just knowing that your common goal is your common ground and building off of that. That's really awesome, Lillian. Thank you. Crystal, what now with your role in IT, you're kind of like that bird's eye view and having a very big impact in what you do. So what has contributed to your sense of belonging as a woman in technology and construction?
So for me, it started off with my very first job in college. There was outside of college, there was nobody. And when I say nobody, it was nobody that looked like me when I first started. I'm old. And so I've been doing this for a couple of decades. And so you learn early to kind of develop a tough skin. But what I learned is that the way you show up is how people receive you. And so I've just learned to just go in and just be kind and loving and open and receiving of people. And that's really just kind of laid down that foundational principles that I follow by with every single job. So coming to Clayco, actually one of my peers that I worked with at another company for, I think maybe 6 years, he actually called me. And because I wasn't looking, I was good. I had just received a promotion in a bigger office. So I was good. 5 weeks of vacation and just a whole bunch of things. And so he was just like, Crystal, you need to come here. I think you would really fit in here at Clayco. And I was just like, man, dude, they just gave me a bigger office and I'm good. I'm okay. And he was like, no, you need to come here. And so for me, coming here, I was received extremely well. And I didn't feel like, to Lillian's point, I didn't feel you know, any different just because I was a Black woman, and everybody was extremely open, and I've developed a lot of great relationships with a lot of the people that don't even look like me here because everybody is just opening and welcoming. And so I would just say that, you know, what I learned early on has really kind of, you know, helped me with every other job that I've had, and Clayco hasn't been any different. So I would say that would be my primary reason.
It's so wonderful and encouraging to hear that they truly sought you out, and that it was like a seamless integration when you came in. That's great. April, how about yourself? What's contributed to your sense of belonging in the industry and in Clayco?
I think particularly at Clayco, Clayco is large, but it feels it's a really small, tight family feel, in my opinion, in my experience. I'm also a traveling PM, travel around the country as well and on new teams. And I think one unique thing about all of us is when we get on these job sites, we're all new to that space typically. You know, 90% of us are all new to that space. So we kind of can lean on each other because we on feeling the feels that we feel, and, you know, being in new places and have to develop new relationships. And I think also at Clayco, it's been such a, you know, again, that we're large, it's been such of a family-oriented feel. We have access to our executive leadership, which is unheard of. You have access to the founder of the company, Bob Clark. And just being able to create and develop those relationships helps you feel at home at all times.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's awesome. Being able to feel that connection to people who are up in senior leadership and know that they actually care. And that's just wonderful. Thank you. In construction, it's constant. The needs are constant. The work is a lot, and things change on a day-to-day basis, and it can lead to a lot of stress. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on your job site and how you handle stress and change and that type of thing. Is there anyone who'd like to start off with how you handle job site stress?
I'll start. I think one thing that's very important is that having a good work-life balance. Yes, there are times where you may have to work extended hours, or, you know, you might be tapped out for a day, but it's that one thing that you need to get done. You got to meet a deadline to get done, but also being able to know when it's time to shut it off. Being a travel PM, we have the opportunity to go home every 2 weeks. So, you know, being able to disconnect and go back with family and friends is very important, and taking advantage of that time. Not missing those opportunities is key. So I think that's really it, trying to really delineate work from work, and, you know, personal life from personal life, and having that clear delineation between the two, and making time for yourself. Whether that's hanging out with friends, going to the spa, doing events, things like that, but just really making time, making yourself a priority, all the while making your career a priority as well.
That's critical, right? Feeding yourself, feeding your soul, making sure that you are good, and then coming back to the job site. Crystal, how about yourself? How do you handle the job site stress that is just going to happen?
So, well, I'm not on the job site. I mean, I've visited job sites like some of the ladies, but, you know, being in corporate and just the function that I support is extremely stressful. Whenever anything doesn't work, people always blame the network, right? And so the network team is a team that I oversee. And so you're constantly dealing with a lot of challenges. But just to kind of piggyback off of what April said, for me, you got to keep yourself centered and make sure your physical and your mental health is good. Because I think as long as you have those things, you can pretty much deal with anything. And for me, I like to laugh and joke. And so my team, we kind of feed off of each other. We're like a small pod, but we laugh and joke, and that helps out. And they know when I'm stressed, I know when they're stressed. And so that helps out as well. And then one of the things that I've done, but I haven't, yeah. One of the things that I have done is I surround my workspace with people that I love, like my children, you know, my parents, my niece, my nephews, and people will come by all the time and say, you got too much crap on your desk. And I'm like, but this is what keeps me here, right? This is what keeps me from having somebody escort me out of here, because when I think that I'm getting frustrated, I kind of look and I'm like, oh, I'm doing it for them. I'm doing it for them. And it helps me out a lot. So that kind of helps me balance out my stress.
That is awesome. And it's connecting you to that kind of mental health piece of life and what April was saying about, that balance. That's great. Thank you, Crystal. Lillian, how do you handle the stress that the job site can bring?
I think I'll take a different look at it. I would say for me, there is just so much going on this project. It's fast paced. Again, at Clayco, we have these fast paced projects. I tend to think about it as knowing the limits on both myself and the team, knowing when to escalate issues so you can relieve some of that, and also knowing when to delegate. Trust your team members, learn to delegate some of that work so you're not taking on too much, they're not taking on too much. And I learned this from my mentor and my boss, basically. So learn to delegate both up and down. Sometimes you may just need that space. And here at Clayco, I don't think I've ever made a call, whether it's to management, my team members, and somebody say, that's not my job. It's been, hey, we got you, right? So I think that speaks a lot. And I think that reduces the amount of work that you're carrying on a day-to-day basis.
So when you delegate, what are some of the key pieces of being able to delegate successfully?
I've had to learn this from years of trial and error, failing along the way in terms of delegation. Because as engineers coming up in the field, you tend to take on more. You want to be the ones in the details, but sometimes you have to step away from some of that and get to that higher level and start kind of looking at it as an overall project. For me, I think the biggest things is really communication, making sure that what you communicate as the task or the ask is understood, it's clear, and also get the feedback that the person you're delegating to understands what the ask is. I think that takes away from any guesswork or the priorities. Hey, this is priority one, or you can get back to me on this maybe a week from today. So I think really just communicating very clearly.
Right. Absolutely. Incredibly important. Thank you so much for that, Lillian. Miss Aretha, how do you handle the job site stress? Because it seems like you got everything figured out.
Boundaries. So it's important to communicate and establish boundaries. And again, not take the work home with you. You've got to be able to, if I'm clocking in 6 a.m., I'm out of here by 5. You've got to be able to disassociate. You've got family at home that now deserve your attention. Especially if you have a young family like myself. So definitely have to set those boundaries in place and say, hey, I'm here for the job. Whatever doesn't need to be handled right now and can wait till the morning, it will have to wait till the morning. There are some issues, of course, that are out of our control, like emergencies. Of course, we tend to right away, but things that are not a dire need, that don't require immediate attention, absolutely set some boundaries with your team. Like Lillian said, delegate. If this is something you can give to your senior PE or someone else that can handle this while you're out, it also helps with everyone else too, so that when you take time off, people know, hey, I'm off the clock. Like, don't hit me up. Same thing with you'll respect your teammates' time when they're off, so that they have an opportunity to disassociate and completely, take the job site stresses away from themselves. So it's definitely communicating boundaries and just being open about what that is.
That's great. And I hear your words also reflected in the responses from the other ladies, the communication, delegation, balance, making sure that your home is your home and you're not bringing it home. That's fantastic. Thank you. Ms. Marks, Sandra, how do you handle the stress that construction brings?
Well, I think, and like Crystal, I'm not on the job site, but certainly in the space that I'm in, you can feel stress sometimes, in particular the times we're in right now as women, and certainly also as Black women, that you feel the stress or the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? That you're like, these things aren't right. I got to fix this. I got to fix it. And I do have a tendency to be a person that does really have to sometimes just take a breath. And I think Crystal alluded to a little bit, you've got to take care of yourself physically and mentally. I also feel personally, and that's just me personally, that spiritually I have to take care of myself. I have to kind of step back and stop and remember the bigger picture, if you will. like Crystal, you know, you take one look at a 7-year-old grandchild and you say, oh, okay, life's worth living. Right? You look at your 85-year-old mother and say, ah, let's go. Right? You look at your husband who, you know, has gone through all things in his life and he's doing what he's doing, but now he's here and you say, ah, you know, you got to sometimes just stop and say, this is extremely important, but this isn't gonna kill me today, right? This is not life. Life is so much bigger than this. Clayco's beyond these walls is that whole thing too, right? We do more than build buildings. We're people who the act of what we do results in a building, but don't get stuck in the bricks and the mortar. Really think about that in terms of, you know, what are you really doing though? You're working around people, interacting, et cetera. So for me, that's what, you know, when I get stressed about some things I'm seeing in the field that bother me personally, or things that I see about how minorities or women are treated in businesses, occasionally that can start to bother you, where it weighs on you and you start to feel like, you know, we're never going to win, right? And then again, I always go back to my best buddy, Russ Burns. He said he's seen the end of the story and we're going to win. So I just have to be patient.
That's encouraging. Man, that's it. It sounds like a lot of what you're taking, or a lot of what kind of brings you through is just that, as you were all saying, like the family environment of Clayco, the leadership of Clayco, the connection, the mentorship, the teamwork, and that it's strong communication and a lot of knowing yourself and reminding yourself of who and what inspires you. Thank you, Sandra. Corey, how do you get through the stress? What do you do that brings you through? Because I mean, being out there, you are out there.
I am out
a
there.
lot.
I didn't realize I introduced myself as a senior superintendent. I'm actually a senior assistant superintendent. However, I am running projects alone. So at moments, I feel like that senior superintendent. Being out in the field on a daily, it's a heavy burden to carry. And you got to be built strong. But one thing I've learned like early on is that stress is inevitable. You just got to learn how to deal with it. Like, I personally handle it by staying calm, staying focused, and solution driven. Like, we do something bi-weekly. It's called a 4-week look ahead. And that's just with the schedule. But I apply that 4-week look ahead to everything that's operating on the job site, not just the schedule, to stay on time. Like, I immediately look for solutions. Like, my experience has taught me that no challenge is permanent. You got to figure something out, and you got to figure it out fast, probably before the end of the shift. So I like to delegate tasks, keep a sense of humor, and I think that keep the jobs flowing effectively. Like, we don't always got to go in, you know, super strict or straight to business, you know? Like, I think it's good to loosen up sometimes on a job site. So, and I think that helps keeping the team moving forward. Because we all there to do one thing, build the building and go home to our family.
Absolutely, safely. Yeah, definitely. Well, I like what you said about no challenge is permanent, and being able to use the team that's around you, because you also mentioned that earlier. You know, just keeping people connected, that communication piece is and how it all works together. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So our chat is blowing up with how great Clayco is and how wonderful it must be to work for a company that cares. I did want to hit back on a question that has been answered. Thank you, April. But just to see if there's any other insights. And the question is, what programs does Clayco have in place to generate interest in trades? We're still a small minority in the field. How are we as industry leaders in the representation of women in construction to capture the interest of young ladies in putting tools on?
Yeah, well, let me start because we do have some exciting things that we are doing. In St. Louis, we actually created our own program called the Construction Career Development Initiative, which is a non-for-profit, a 501c3 that is now totally independent of Clayco, but we were kind of an anchor partner for that program starting in St. Louis. And it was really to expose minorities and women and people that are underrepresented in our industry to the trades and the professions, the engineering, et cetera, the architecture. We have the opportunity to show that whole gamut. So that program has really had a great success in really getting to young people in, even though the program starts them with the freshman or sophomore year of high school, they're also partnered with middle school programs and some that are even earlier than that, because the earlier we can expose young people, the better. And that program really has a pretty good mix of women as well. So many women who, without having that mentorship at the high school level of recognizing that you can be in the trades, that you have an interest in that, and that that's okay, that you belong there, that we need you there. We desperately need women and what women can bring to our job sites and to our fields. So we start that program. It's in St. Louis, it's in Chicago, it's in Phoenix, it's in one other place that's skipping me. But we're looking to expand it other places. But even when we don't have that program in a certain market, like Aretha there in Fort Myers and Lillian in California, all of our project teams are empowered to go into a high school and tell their story, show themselves, let people see them. And if you're in a market that has a program, then we always encourage young women to go into those programs. We found Corey because Corey was in a program in Chicago called Chicago Women in the Trades. But then also, so Corey was in that program, so she had actually had an opportunity to be put in certain places. And then it took beyond that, Corey being how she is, to go up to our very founder, Bob Clark, introduce herself, and boom, everything started falling right in place for her. But, we encourage young women to get into those programs. ACE Mentoring, our program is CCDI. If there is a Women in the Trade, certainly NAWIC. I've been involved in NAWIC a long time before I got to Clayco, because again, I searched out women in construction who own their own businesses or who were in the profession. And I always encourage women-owned businesses to show themselves. Go back to your school, go back to your high school, go back to your elementary school, and show them that you're running a company and that you're running the company. Make it very clear. Or you're running the job like these women are doing. So I think that, we've got to show ourselves more, but then we also have to make sure that when a young lady approaches us, our network of women in April does something every year that they've done now for several years, take a girl to work or bring a girl to work day. All of us around the country at Clayco bring our daughters, our nieces, our neighbors, our cousins, any young girl, to just let them see us in every aspect of Clayco. And that often turns a light on. But then once you turn it on, we do need organizations to keep them interested. Because the older you get, I think of my 7-year-old granddaughter who loves Legos and Minecraft and building things and tinkering with things. And I always look at that when I see young children and say, who's going to tell her that she doesn't belong there? Who's going to be the one that starts to put in her head, you don't want to be an engineer. That's too hard. Kind of like my doctor's in nursing, and she told a teacher once that she wanted to go into the medical profession, and it was kind of like, why are you going into something so stressful? Right? Do something less stressful. And you're kind of like, no, that's what I want to be. Right? So I think for us, yes, we do have some programs, and we encourage others to do the same thing.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sandra. In looking at Clayco and how great it is and all those things, what I'd like to ask next is, help us kind of boil it down. Like, what is it about Clayco that makes it feel connective, that makes it feel just belonging? What is it about the company that makes it feel like that? April?
Oh, okay. Well, we got awesome ladies that you guys are here and talk today, right? That's the start of it. And then on top of it is, I go back to that family close-knit feel. I've actually worked for Clayco twice. Back in 2013, we were much smaller then. And now we're a much larger multi-million-dollar company. And so it still has that same small, tight-knit family atmosphere. Like I said, you have access to people like Sandra. You have access to Bob Clark himself. I have a while ago, many years ago, Bob wanted to get to know some of his employees, and I was fortunate to be one of those employees. He invited me and one of my coworkers. She was a project engineer at the time. minority as well, to his office at the St. Louis office, and for lunch one day. Just sat there, had lunch together, nothing about work, just strictly just wanted to get to know us and who was here as an employee. So that something like that is having access to your founder, your company on such a large company that has 3,000 plus employees is truly unheard of. And I think that kind of translates down to the job sites as well. Just be having that executive leadership, being able to call, pick up the phone, get answers, get responses. And if they don't have the answer for you, someone will be able to help you. And so just being able to, lean on your leadership, lean on your peers, your coworkers, I think that's what really makes Clayco one of the best places to work for sure.
Thank you for that.
I agree with April. I mean, for me, it's definitely the people is a big part of it because, like you said, it's a large company, but it's still like that small family feel. It's like it's great now for everyone to be all in one office now, because before moving to this office, we were all kind of separated, and it's cool to be able to see people, high five people, give people a hug. I just ran into somebody I hadn't seen him forever. He just gave me a pound. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you. And so it's just great to be able to do that. And then the other thing, to April's point, is, our founder, my first experience with him was during George Floyd. And I never forget that day he had a town hall because he was concerned about how people were feeling and what people were thinking. And he just wanted to just share his personal thoughts and just to make sure that everyone was okay. And he was concerned about some safety concerns as well. And so I just reached out to him and I was just like, hey, thank you for doing this. This is really awesome. I'm glad you decided to have this town hall. And I was like, if you ever, just want to get people together in a small group, a large group, just to talk about it, because everybody was feeling uncomfortable. It didn't matter whether you was white, black, striped, whatever. Everybody was just uncomfortable in that moment. And I will never forget it. It was less than a minute. He immediately emailed me back and he was like, let's get together and talk about it. And I was just like, am I on punked? Is this for real? Is this a joke? Is this really him? Like, is this automated? What's going on? And it was really him reaching out, and he was very determined to hear out people's frustrations and concerns and a lot of other things. And so for that, I was just like, that has never happened to me in my 2+ decades of working in corporate America. So that kind of sealed the deal for me.
Personal.
Yeah.
Personal, like caring and the real deal. And the fact that it's honest and you're not being punked is just,
Yeah. It felt like it though. I was like, do I respond to this or not?
Yeah,
I need
you
to
a lot here where
piggyback off Crystal's story. Like, it still seems surreal. Like, from the day I met Bob, it was just like an awkward moment. Like, is this person real? And he's actually like a real person. Like, even how close we've gotten over the years. Like, normally somebody will recruit you, you get to work and whatever happens, happens. But like, he still FaceTime me. Like, dude, like what are you doing? But like outside of the connection that I had with Bob, like I remember my very first project, Cook County Health Center, Chicago. He came and visited me at the job site, and everybody started looking at me weird. I told Bob, don't come visit me again at the job site, because I wanted people to respect me for me, not because who I was connected to. So shut that down early on. But outside of the connection with Bob, just the ample opportunities that I've had with Clayco, continuously allowing me to prove myself, like having the Sandra Marks, having the Jerry Wenzels, having the Otto Nichols, just pour into young me. It's like, I remember early on, they used to always be like, oh, she's a shining star. And I'm like, I'm just, a rookie, but they seen something in me that I didn't see in myself, and I'll forever be indebted to them for that. So, and it's like beyond the people in construction is tough. And just to be able to adapt to so many different teams, like I think that was Aretha said something earlier, like every job site, you feel like a new kid on the block, but it's like everybody is the new kid on the block. And just being a young African-American woman as a superintendent, not downplaying anyone's role in the company, but I get it like 1,000 times harder and I have to adapt. And it's like, I haven't had any bad run-ins. By the grace of God, I haven't had any run-ins on the job sites. And I think that's because I allow people to be who they are. I give them their respect. I don't go around the job site pounding my chest like I'm the superintendent, I'm running the show. We can build better together. We can build better together. So that's my spiel.
Thank you, Corey. That was all. Anyone else like to speak to Clayco and how it contributes to your success?
I can add, I think to echo pretty much everybody else's point here, it's just that open door, knowing that you have reached to management. And I know maybe there's people listening into their companies, this seems unreachable, but it's true. Whether it's something going on in your career at work or at home, they truly do care. I've gotten that 6 a.m. text just checking in if something else was going on outside of work for me, and that's from higher up in management. So I think that speaks tons to what Clayco has. So there is an inbuilt culture already that we walked into. And then additionally, just growth. You're able to see it around you. If you work hard enough, you get rewarded, right? So I know I started off as a senior PE when I first started. I got promotion to PM, senior PM. So you put in the work, you get the rewards, regardless of who you are, what you look like. Clayco, it's really your hard work puts you in the next level. So I think.
Awesome. Thank you for that, because that's that recognition is something that people don't always get, and especially that advancement is something that doesn't always get. Sometimes you have to fight for it. So thank you so much, Lillian. Anybody else want to speak to just overall in Clayco and how it's contributing to your success as a team leader or as a team member?
I think also to add to this is like Clayco is very renowned, known across the country, right? And I think we are exposed to a lot of new areas, a lot of cool projects. Every project is different. We work in very many sectors, all of us, and I think just having that ability to have those opportunities just sets us apart, Clayco itself, from many others like us. And I think that makes another reason why it's such a great place to work at. You really got to enjoy to come to work every day. And I think for me, this is that place for sure. I really love what I do. I've always wanted to, like I said, be an engineer, but I've worked for 2 other general contractors, and this for sure is the best place I've worked in this industry.
That's awesome. I hope that those of us in the attending live today are able to kind of just reflect on this and think about, what is it going to look like for you to ask for your promotion, for your next advancement, whether it's, the next level up or transferring to a different job site, being able to have that voice. And speaking of having that voice, you all have been with this company for over 5 years. So rookie is the last thing from your title. How are you using your position to be a mentor to somebody else? And what does that look?
I'll go. So Clayco does implement having interns on our jobs. So that's standard, regardless if you want them or not to hit the jobs, you're going to get an intern, which I love. I love that they put that on us. So every intern that we've gotten, you just take them, at least for me, I take them under my wing. I want them to be the next project manager. I want them to be better than me. I want to teach them, all the great skills and pass down all my lessons learned, all the mistakes I've made so that they don't make them. And it's just really just being open with them about, the trials, the tribulations, your successes, how I've been able to succeed, what's worked for me. And it's just kind of like bouncing those ideas off of each other because, the difference in generations and whatnot. So we do things a little differently. I'm a little atypical. That person who I may be teaching may not be. I like things written down, and if I don't see you writing on a note, that's kind of my pet peeve that you don't write it down, but nevertheless. But that's really what I love is to teach the interns, have them under your wing, and just really just be open. I think that's the best, being truthful about what the business is like and not just kind of sugarcoating. And because they're there for a short period of time, trying to put a facade on what it's like, actually showing the moans, groans, and complaints with your subs sometimes, with your teammates sometimes, and just seeing that and just being really out in there, critical issues that happen, just letting them see everything that happens and, kind of just going from there.
That's awesome. Being truthful. That's pretty brave sometimes. Thank
There's no
you.
other way around it.
That's what makes you a great leader. Would anybody else like to speak to how you mentor the interns or the incoming or the newbies on the block?
Yeah, I can chime in. I mentor by leading by example, creating opportunities for them, not just giving out tasks. Having started as a laborer, I know the value and support of having good guidance and a good mentor. I take time to teach every laborer and carpenter that come to my job site. Like, that's my thing, to pour into someone else. It's a great feeling completing a job on time, but I think it's no greater feeling knowing that I've had someone excel into their career. Just like I was given a chance, I make sure to recognize talent and help others reach their full potential. Like Sandra Marks pushed me to be the best version of myself. I'm making my business to do the same. So,
Corey, when you said recognize talent, how do you do that?
like, just sit back and observe. You can tell talent from like small, like fine details, the urgency in their walk, the what time they get to work. If work start at 6 a.m., if they're there at 5:30, like you can recognize it. Like, you can recognize it from afar. It takes some skill, it takes some time, but just sit back and observe it all fall in place. The ones who can stand tall will stand. I'm still here 8 years later. And the ones that I started with who didn't last, they're not around anymore,
That's a good point. And I like how you talked about observing and
Yeah.
using what you see and what they're doing, whether it's big or small, the time that
Yeah.
they show up, what they do, how they do. Thank you.
It reminds me of April, speaking of athletes, it's very similar, right? That you sit back and you see talent, and that little piece that says that drive or something about that person that says that this is somebody that if they get the support, they can excel. So I love always the comparison to sports and the sports environment, because that's kind of a common area that everybody can relate to, regardless of what sport or whatever, just that sense of teamwork and that sense of belonging that comes when you're part of a team, but also the fact that the people who are coaches are people who have learned how to find talent and nurture that talent, and then they turn around and do the same. It's very rare to see a person who's really been very passionate in their sport to not turn around. I'm sure April turns right around and wants to show somebody else how to bounce the basketball. Because she bounced it. And to her, she wants everybody else to know how to do. I mean, it just becomes a natural, and it's the same thing with anything else that we do. I always wanted to be a teacher. So I love the fact as a consultant that I could be talking to someone and impart something on them that makes them better, that feeds me, and I'm looking for it. I'm hungry for it. And so that teacher side of me, I think it's the same that you see in coaches and athletic people, and just people who, to be honest, we're Black people in the United States. All of us have a story of what obstacles we maybe have had to experience in life, like anybody else. But clearly, we obviously pushed and persevered. So you're using all of that, the things that made you a little tougher, a little rougher, just because where you grew up or what you had to experience or what you saw somebody else experience, even if it wasn't you saw somebody else experience it. And it puts a little chink in our armor that people might not appreciate until they get in the trenches. And then all of a sudden we're able to say, hey, pull it together. It's like somebody said, aren't you concerned about what's happening today? I said, this has happened in my life before. This is nothing new for me. I just have to figure out, how do I persevere?
Awesome. I love how you said push to persevere. That, I think it kind of very much addresses, I think, everybody in this room and anybody who will be watching this on the replay. Thank you so much, Sandra. Anybody else like to speak to how they mentor other young men, young women coming into the field or coming into the industry?
I can add slightly on that. So I think we are in positions now. I think we were mentored to get to these positions. And we're in those positions now to look at helping, whether it's the project engineers on the job site, superintendent, and it's cross, right? It doesn't have to be the same career path. Whether it's sharing your experience with them or understanding their challenges that you can see when they're on your team, with the interns, with the team members that you have. And then additionally, we're also in positions to mentor small businesses, right? We're in positions to look at small businesses, disadvantaged businesses, minority businesses, and get them on board on our projects, right? We have that ability now. So I think it's also being conscious, taking a conscious effort to look for the people around you. And Alessandra is a great resource with some of the team members here at Clayco to reach out to some of these teams and companies and just help them on board. And maybe that would be, their stepping stone to their next project. So
Actively reaching out and bringing people with you. That's fantastic advice. Ladies, thank you so very much for sharing your stories, sharing your wisdom, sharing your experiences, sharing your grit. We appreciate you all being here, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you so much for the inspiration. Have a great week and a great WIC week. Take
Thank
care.
you.
thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.